My name is Kevin Burke. I'm a director of the S2K Challenge. I am also a driving coach with Fast Toys Incorporated, and all around just a track day enthusiast. I drive an S2000, and I think I drive the hell out of it.
You know, one of the only reasons why you're here?
Why?
Just take a wild guess.
You know, you reached out to me on Instagram, so I'm going to say my Instagram fuck-ups.
No, actually, you drive an S2000, and I miss my car, so I was hoping you would bring yours, and I can drive an S2000 again.
Well, you know, you saw the car. You really think I would drive that all the way here? With the big numbers on the side, and the big wing. I mean, man, it's
like
tough.
the Kirby bugs, man. People drive those.
It's tough, but we can make it work. Why don't you come to a track day?
I will.
And when we'll do that.
Thanks for the invite.
We can absolutely do that. You'll come out, you'll be surrounded by S2000s at the S2K Challenge. And you can take your pick on what car you want to ride in.
I'm not a terrible driver, but I definitely need some instruction. Like, I used to do a lot of autocross. That was really kind of the majority of what I did.
Autocross is kind of the best place to start.
Yeah.
It teaches you the car control without the risk of hitting a wall or another
the dying
car.
part. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the dying part. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always tell my students to start with autocross if they can. And it has a lot to do with, you know, a lot of them want to go right into road racing and right into the fast stuff, but really, like, the best drivers in the world, I think, at least at my level, are autocross drivers.
Yeah.
Because all those little inputs, they understand weight transfer, they understand car control.
Yeah.
All
It'll
that
walk
stuff
before you run, right?
I mean, exactly.
And the thing with autocross is it's one of those things where you have to be hyper effective on using every little bit of tarmac because you don't have a lot of space between the cones.
Right.
And it's funny because, you know, when you first, at least for me, when you first go out to your first autocross or your first event or whatever, you're like, I'm going to push the shit out of the car and I'm going to get the fastest
says
time.
Everyone.
Right. And then you end up pushing way too hard and you get the slowest time and you're like, but I was like,
but I don't understand.
Bouncing off the rev limiter the other time.
Yeah, I was driving the wheels off. I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's that finesse that you learn over time, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like the best drivers that I've ever been with are the ones that kind of treat those fast corners on road courses like autocross where they just lose traction just a bit and then land exactly where they need to be.
Yeah, see, on road courses, yes, very, very few people. I am not one of those people because I don't have the balls, to be frank with you. It's a scary thing.
It's all seat time, man.
It is, yeah.
It's all
but,
seat
you
time.
know, it's like you, I guess, yeah, after a certain point.
It really is.
You get desensitized to that feeling of losing grip.
I feel that I'm proof of that because I'm not God's gift to driving, but I did 36 track days last year.
Nice.
And that's a lot. That's more than most people do in 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to the point where I'm at now is just seat time, seat time, seat time. And the speed becomes not really like where you just said, like, I don't have the balls. It doesn't cross your mind when you have, 50 track days under your belt within 6 months.
Sure.
You're like, oh, whatever. It's not a big deal. I can go faster here, so I'm going to. And you just get used to that. You get desensitized,
right?
I guess is the word.
Desensitized, you grow a pair. I mean, all of the above.
Yeah.
You know, I guess after you experience it, it's like going on a roller coaster your first time, right? You get scared your first time, and then you go over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Now imagine doing that
happen.
50 times.
Yeah.
You go, you know that you're going to make it through there.
Right.
You trust the car. You trust the parts that you put on. You trust the alignment, the tires, all that stuff.
Hopefully you trust the parts.
Right. Well,
I've seen some stuff. I'm sure as you have.
Well, I have a funny story about some parts. So I don't know if you saw, but I had a rear toe arm fail at Button Willow.
I didn't.
In sweeper.
Okay.
So on the back corner of it before the S's, coming around the corner, this was on a Sunday morning, a morning of the S2K Challenge, which I was really excited to compete in. And coming around the corner, and all of a sudden I hear a pop. And then I just lose all control.
A pop.
And I just spun and landed 10 feet before the wall on the S's.
Yeah.
It was a butt-clenching moment.
Butthole pucker moment.
And I had aftermarket toe arms. And, it's one of those things where if you don't need to go aftermarket, you really shouldn't.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I learned that Honda knew what they were doing for the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. Like, you do have some bump steer, and that's why everyone does aftermarket toe arms. But I'll be honest, like, there's not a whole lot of people that are good enough to even feel the bump steer. It's very minute.
I think there's also not a good enough amount
of
people that have the ability to get to the point where you need to be a really, really good driver
Right. Well,
to control
you've
that car.
owned it. Like, like you had an AP2.
Yeah.
But a lot of people complain about the bumps during the AP1. But like, that's not something that the average driver feels.
There was plenty of bumps there in the AP2 as well.
I think that has to do with the just the chassis and the short wheelbase and just everything as a whole. The car is just very hard to handle, which we were talking about a little bit earlier.
It's a hell of a car, though.
It is a hell of a car. It's more than the sum of its parts. You see these cars out at Buttonwillow doing, 156s, 157s, and you go, what the hell?
Yeah.
How is that possible? And they're just like, stock motor.
Anything under 2 at Buttonwillow is nuts.
Well, it's not as nuts now. It was nuts a couple of years ago before the repave, full disclosure. But yeah, like under 2 now is pretty nuts. Like I was doing some research on F80 M3s a couple days ago, and they were doing like 157s.
Yeah.
And then when you look at that car
crazy.
and the technology in that, and then you look at these 15-year-old Hondas doing that same time with minimal mods.
Older.
With a good driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
With a good driver.
The S2000 was what? 98 is when they actually released the car. And that was when they were doing the testing. And 99 is when they actually put it up for sale. I think that's when it was.
And then all the way up to 2009.
Yeah. So this is a car that was designed
20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. 20 plus years ago. Arguably plus, because that's when it came out. So imagine the amount of years of R&D that they put into that car.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it had to do with the NSX as well, because I'm sure, as you know, the same designer that designed the NSX.
Same assembly line, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, I missed the shit out of that car.
Just talking about you're going to go buy one, huh?
I'm in a position where I have 2 cars right now, and I need to get rid of both of them.
Okay. And you're going to get a truck and an S2000.
No.
You heard it here first.
So, all right. Yeah, I was considering it. I was considering getting an S2000, but I don't think I'm going to do it.
Okay.
For a couple of different reasons. I want a more, I don't want to say potent car, but a car that is capable of doing things very fast and also pretty damn comfortable.
Okay, the comfortable thing I get.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it can do things fast on a track.
It is not comfortable.
It is not comfortable, especially when you modify it, which I know you'll want to do, because these cars beg to be modified.
Yeah. And it's what I did. It's what I did. My car was not stock, and I should have left it stock, because from the factory, it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn potent.
I mean, they're pretty bulletproof, and that's why I think the S2K Challenge is a really good opportunity to get into time attack competitively, because the S2000s, they look good, they have a fan following, they have tons of aftermarket support, and they're actually really cheap to run.
Yeah, they really are.
We have competitors that win that have low compression on all 4 cylinders, and they know they have scoring on the side of their cylinder walls, and they're like, fuck it, let's just drive it. And they do, and they beat the shit out of it, and it lasts forever. And that's kind of the thing with those cars, is they just get beat on, and they last a while.
Yeah.
Unless you're unlucky like me and have to buy 3 motors in a year and a half.
F20s.
I bought the car with an F20 that went bad after 1 track day.
Really?
I think it was the owner that sold it to me. I think it's suspect for a lot of stuff.
You blow a rod. What happened?
So what happened was I suspect that a spark plug node actually fell into the cylinder.
No shit.
At some point. I think it was before I bought it, but it could have been after I bought it for all I know. I don't know. Scored up all the cylinder walls. So I said, oh shit, I'm going to be down on power. I want to compete with this car. This is when it was mostly stock. I took it to like 2 autocross and 1 track day.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? Let's rebuild this thing. Let's make it good. So I went to Lasky in Riverside and had him rebuild the motor. He's a pretty famed, Honda builder and really good. Yeah. And built it right, sleeved it with Benton sleeves, forged internals, everything. That motor only lasted me 6 track days.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm like everyone talks about how these cars are super reliable, but I'm an outlier. And in all fairness, I misshifted at Big Willow. That's how it blew up. So it's not the car's fault.
Okay.
I went to
was it an over rev?
Yeah, it was 12,000 RPM.
Holy shit.
Well, in a car that revs to 9,000, it's not that crazy. Yeah, so but just hang on.
Oh, well, okay, so it wasn't stock internals.
It wasn't stock internals.
Yeah, so 12,000, yeah.
So 12,000, you'd think the head would go, but what happened was the bearings went.
Huh.
Which is really weird. So I'm thinking, I don't know. I know it's not Lasky's fault. I know it was mine, but I just don't know what happened. Maybe I went low on oil and I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't notice. I was still new. I wasn't as anal as I am now. So then I went and bought a brand new Honda OEM.
Okay.
F22, because you can no longer get the F20s.
So brand new, 0 miles on it? It was
brand
like a
new,
crate?
crate.
Wow, I didn't know that they could do that.
Yeah, they can. They had a few at the time, and I bought it through Rockstar Garage, and I think Rockstar can still get a couple of the brand new F22s.
How do you feel about putting a K24?
If I blow one more motor, I'm either K24 swapping it or LS swapping it because I'm tired of spending the F Series premium.
Yeah, the F Series is an expensive motor.
It is. And you mentioned earlier that your favorite motor is a K24.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, I think if price was no object, I think the F22 is a better motor. But I think when you start thinking about replacement cost and the cost of the overall motor as a whole, the K starts to make more sense. The S2K Challenge brings out a lot of talent in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that see that and get scared to come out as S2000 drivers because you see guys like Dustin DeCero and Brando Grosso, and you know these guys have been doing it for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy shit, like I can't compete with that. But having that competition out there just makes it so much better.
Yeah.
That's how I got good so quickly, is through the help of those guys.
Yeah, let's talk about that good so quickly, because that's an understatement. That's the understatement of the century. How long have you been an instructor?
Less than a year, I think.
Okay.
Now.
And how long have you been doing this whole racing thing?
I've been competing in the S2K Challenge for, I want to say, a little over 2 years, like 2 years and like a month, maybe.
Okay. That's the S2K Challenge.
Yeah, but that was when I started tracking in general. I had a couple track days with my Volkswagen Golf R back in 2013, but that was like, I did a Big Willow track day once a year, 2013 and 2014, and that was it.
I want to talk about skipping the line.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that has to do with, again, with track time. I hit it hard, and I made a goal to go to every S2K Challenge, which was 10 events a year. And I ended up going to more than that because I would go issues with my motor and want to, you know, test it out and do all that. And then I started getting involved with the Fast Toys. And what they basically do is invite me out to instruct, give people ride-alongs in my car.
Okay.
And all they do is really pay me with seat time.
Nice.
They pay me with, hey, Kevin, bring your S2K out, take it on the track as much as you want, give people ride-alongs, instruct, do all that. But at the end of the day, from 4 to 5 o'clock, it's kind of no one's there. So I go out and I practice.
It's a very nice perk.
It's a very nice perk, and I'm very appreciative of them for that. But anyways, back to just my situation and my track time. I think it just has to do with, I just went in it head first and went to as many track days as I could do.
See, I understand what you're saying, but I think with something like driving, you have to have talent. You have to.
See, I don't know.
It's one of those things where I've been to quite a few autocrosses and quite a few track days, not as many as you, obviously. But let's just say this. Ultimately, no matter how many track days I go to, I'm never going to be a Lewis Hamilton.
Well, no, me neither. But I think it just has to do with your being comfortable on the track, being calm. You know, like if you look at the heart rate of these guys, even driving F1s, their heart rates are just steady.
Sure.
They're resting heart rate when they're racing. Yeah. And it's when you get excited is when you make those mistakes.
But coming back to the whole Lewis Hamilton thing, I'll throw him out the picture. If I were to do what you did in the period of time that you did it in, I don't think I'd be able to be an instructor. Even after 50 track days, I think I would become a much better driver, but I still don't think I would have the confidence to instruct someone.
Well, I mean, it's kind of tough you do have to have that confidence, right? I mean, that confidence is what people read when you're instructing them. But it wasn't all the seat time either. Have you ever done a racing sim before?
No.
Anything like that?
Well, aside from like Gran Turismo.
Okay. So I actually, I'm more into it now. When I first started, I was quite a bit into the racing sims, and I feel that there's something to be said about getting the full rig with the steering wheel and everything, like, and doing a real racing sim like iRacing or Assetto Corsa. Okay. Project Cars 2 is okay. I don't think it's the best, but it's decent for car control. So like we said earlier with the autocross, when you're in a racing sim, the rear end steps out, you can feel it on your steering wheel and you counter.
Okay.
And I got really good at a racing sim, I don't know, like a year and a half ago, maybe, when I was like just starting to get into track days. And I went to a track day at Buttonwillow, and I actually have this on footage. I'm going into sunset or sunrise, turn 1 going clockwise. And you see me just kind of lose the rear end and then just jiggle the steering wheel like back and forth, and then straighten it out. And I realized in that moment that that was all second nature. that correction movement. And I learned that through the racing sim.
Okay.
So that was kind of like an epiphany for me. And like, holy shit, this does work. I just did that and I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
The rear steps out, you counter steer again. And I did it so quickly that it was smooth. And I did that because of the practice in the racing sim.
Yeah.
So again, going back to your argument of, natural talent and all that stuff, I don't wholeheartedly disagree. I feel like there's something to be said for that.
Of course.
But I also feel like it's all practice, man.
Well, yeah, practice makes perfect with everything that you do. But
right.
Yeah, there's certain things like you could become a really good lawyer if you are a good arguer, right?
Okay. All right. I see where you're going with this. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's just a certain... That's, I think, why people land in the careers that they land, and not necessarily why they land there, but why they get really, really good at it. Like, there are a lot of lawyers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all really, really good lawyers. I think to a certain extent, you have to have talent to get to, let's say, here's level 1, to get to level 3, where you're actually doing some really legitimate work, like becoming a racing instructor and going on ride-alongs or doing ride-alongs in other people's cars, which is a very nice perk.
It is a wonderful perk. It's one of the reasons I keep going back. And to be honest, right seat instructing is rather dangerous. When you're instructing a newbie and you're in the right seat, it's much safer to either do data analysis or drive them in their car and go, this is what this car can do at this level.
Yeah.
And do this, and then step out, let them do it, and then track their progress via data. The problem is a lot of people don't have the patience for data. And they just want you to get in the right seat and go look at me.
Yeah.
So, but you can tell right away when you talk to somebody if they're going to be a sketchy driver. If they feel like they're going to boast how fast they are, or if they feel like, hey, come with me, like I want to show you how I do this, as opposed to, hey, can you come with me? I want you to show me how to do this. It's just, you get a feel for somebody, just talking to them like we're talking right now. You get a feel like, I don't feel comfortable getting in a race car with you. That's kind of the feel that these people give off. So you can always just go, oh, no thanks. Or yeah, let's go, but keep it down below 80 miles an hour. If you go above, I'll black flag you and shut your car off and we'll figure it out. So we do have a matter of control. But that being said, I went off on a little bit of tangent. That's why I really like that Fast Toys encourages some of the instructors to drive the students' cars because all the instructors that go out there are very responsible. We've all driven those exotic cars before, so it's nothing new. We're not, oh my God, it's a McLaren, we're going to haul ass. No, we're there to teach. That's our job.
Right.
And so when we go out with in these people's cars, I always talk to them before, what speed do you feel comfortable me going in the front straight at Auto Club? Do you want me to limit it? And sometimes they go, yeah, can you limit it at 115? I feel uncomfortable. I say, no problem. This last time I went out, I met this woman, Jennifer, in a 488 GTB. And it's a beautiful car. And she said, you know what, Kevin, go as fast as you want on the front straight.
Nice.
And you know what? That it really does help her to have her feel what that's like. Because when she drives it, she's going to get on it and go as fast as a car can go. But to see me do it at that speed and that smoothly, I hope resonates with the students and they realize that smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Jerky movements are not how you're fast in a car, especially in a Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, any of those cars.
Right.
You need to be smooth.
Yeah.
The second you're jerky is when stuff happens.
Yeah. Watching Bruce Willis do a montage or a chase scene or something like that. That's not indicative of how fast he's going. He's probably not going very fast. It's for the movies.
Exactly. Well, you know what? To be honest, I've never really watched like a chase scene in the past 2 years, like in the instructor mindset.
Yeah.
Because I always just think like, oh, I mean, they're oversteering everywhere just for looks. Like that's not fast. They're just trying to make it look good.
It's for the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's funny is actually when I first got my driver's license, before that, getting my permit and driving up Benedict Canyon, that was hilarious for my dad. Because he was sitting to the right of me and you just see me working the wheel. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you jerking the wheel?
Right.
Stay in the damn lane. You don't need to correct the car 16 times in a 25 mile an hour turn, So it's funny because there's a lot of people that I feel like that's their definition of fast driving. It's like you really gotta squeeze the last whatever out of the car.
Misconception. Yeah. A common misconception. And they're not wrong at that level. When you squeeze every ounce of performance out of a car, you will make those minor corrections.
But you need to know physics and how the feeling of
weight
the car
transfer,
is.
and you need to understand all that stuff,
Right.
and you need to be a talented driver. But the problem is a lot of people go on the track for the first time, and they try and do that, but they don't really understand what it feels like to be on the limit of a car through a chicane or through a turn or through a multi-point turn, anything like that. So they get overwhelmed easily, and then they make mistakes.
Yeah, scary as hell in an S2000.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I've seen a lot of mishaps in an S2000.
Yeah.
Seen a couple flip at the track.
Yeah.
Which have not been fun. This last event, I guess a friend of the owner loaned them their car.
Oh, no.
And actually caught air going up the Omega.
Okay, well, that's not that bad.
No, caught air. Like, they went off track.
Okay.
And they hit a berm and actually caught air. Like, there's a picture by Cali Photography, and I'll show it to you after the podcast. And it's probably 4 feet off the ground.
Oh, that's a lot.
Midair.
I thought it was like,
no,
I don't know, like
the car's
6
totaled.
inches.
No, the car's totaled.
Jesus.
It actually, there's a GIF from all the photos that they took, and it comes up, lands, looks like it rocks it, and just goes right out of frame. You know, looks like they stick the landing, but apparently the whole chassis is just
the frame's gone.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and there's some instances where I don't right seat drive. A lot of those events with the S2000s, I won't right seat drive in an S2000 with a new driver.
Okay.
I'll right seat drive with some of the S2K challenge drivers that I trust, that I've seen that they're fast, they know what they're doing. But a lot of the newbies, I won't, because the S2K is sketchy.
Yeah.
Whereas,
at the limit.
Even at the limit, like even before the limit, I should say, they're tricky to get to know. And if they're not sorted, they're really dangerous.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, talk about the snap oversteer, all that stuff. If you sort an S2K with good suspension, good tires, and a good alignment,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a very mechanically sticky
snap
car.
oversteer is just non-existent.
Yeah.
But the problem is no one for their first, second, third, fourth, even fifth time will spend the money on a good alignment, good suspension, and good tires.
Yeah. Well, those are very expensive things.
They are, and I do understand that.
Yeah.
But still, alignment isn't that expensive. You can get a custom alignment at most places for $90, I think, nowadays.
Yeah.
So, and the S2K has all the stock adjustments you can do without having to really modify it too much. So you can get a good alignment, set the toe correctly. Because if you handed me an S2K with a shit alignment, I don't think I could be fast in it.
Yeah.
If the rear end is towed out and I turn in and the whole thing just whips around, there's not much I can do about that.
Sure.
So it's that makes a big difference, is the alignment that no one ever thinks about.
Yeah.
A lot of people email me for my alignment specs, and I share it openly. Like, it's not a secret. And then they say, "Oh, is it worth it to get alignment? I just put new suspension." And I go, "Yes."
Yeah, it's very much worth it. Anytime you touch the geometry of the suspension, go do an alignment. That's like the number one thing.
Yeah, I changed my shocks. I'm developing some feel suspension
for the
S2000.
Cool.
With the help of Rockstar Garage and Odie Bacchisi, the Formula D driver and owner of Feel. And I switched them out from my Tanes. And just driving to get the alignment to Rockstar, which is like a 40-minute drive, my alignment felt like it was set to death. I would hit a bump on the road and it would just move over a lane.
Yeah.
And it was towed out like 1/8 of an inch. That's all it took.
Yeah.
And it felt dangerous to drive, even on the street.
Yeah.
So the alignment is a big thing that not a lot of people talk about.
It's kind of a testament to that chassis. That chassis is so it's predictable when you need it to be, when it's set up right.
Correct.
But it's such a finely tuned car, that car.
It can be. And that's kind of why I love it, is because it pushes you as a driver.
Yeah.
And I feel that my experience in that car and my seat time in that car allows me to hop into a 488 and push it to the limit, because I'm not afraid. Like, those cars are a lot more forgiving than an S2K.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy, but they're modern cars, They
are
have,
modern cars,
3-step stability control that, takes care of everything. The S2K my S2K has no stability control. So, that all makes a difference. And again, when I'm driving a customer's car, a student's car, I never push it, beyond the limit.
I'll tell you when I fell in love with the S2000, and then I want you to tell me when you fell in love with the S2000. So back when YouTube just came out, one of the first videos that I saw on YouTube was the testing of the AP one. It was the red one.
Okay.
I think the driver was Gonson.
Okay. Was it one of the Toge
No, it was I think it was I think it was actually a Honda testing video.
Okay.
And it was top down, older gentleman, Japanese driver. That video was so incredibly insane that I said, I want that car. So the guy is going, you know, the speedometer is, they show the speedometer.
Right.
And they show the 9,000 red line. And they show how fast everything is going by you at the Nürburgring. He's catching air. He's passing cars. He is flying in that AP1. Actually, I think there were no cars in that test video. And he's just wearing like regular loafers, you know, like regular kind of. Remember those little loafers with the tassels that were popular in the 90s? Yeah, he's wearing that.
I still see people go to the track with those. I see people go fast with those, actually.
Well, yeah.
Funny story. There might be something. There might be something to that. I don't know.
But anyway, as Paul Zuckerman likes to say, that was my taproot moment. What's going on inside your head right now? Where did this come from? This falling in love with the S2000?
So it's actually going to be something you didn't expect.
Okay.
My mom actually bought a brand new AP1 S2000. So my mom was actually an OG AP1 driver. No stability control. She drove the raw one.
Good for her.
Yep. My mom's badass. And that was the car that, I hope they don't listen to this, that I snuck out of the house and drove when they weren't home.
They probably knew.
They probably knew, I'm sure. New tires every 5,000 miles probably was a clue. But I snuck out and drive it. That was the car that I learned to drive on. That was the car that I took my driving test in.
You were a lucky SOB, you know?
I was. And, you know, even back then when I was driving that car, it's just something about the revs and the shifter and the sound. I even told a lot of my friends, I said, when I took them out, like I'd, you know, sneak out of the house, come pick up my friends. We'd go for a drive and I'd be like, you know, this is my like dream car. And it's an attainable dream car. And that's kind of what was in the back of my head. I'm like, I want a car that's attainable, that I want to like lust after. I don't want to lust after a Ferrari 458 because that's just, you know, a lot of the times it's a waste of time to lust after a car like that.
Sure.
But this car is just something about it. Even then, when I couldn't even drive legally, that was just special. And I feel it always had a special place in my heart. And then my mom sold it randomly and bought a Porsche Cayenne.
A Cayenne?
SUVs. And I was heartbroken. I was like 17 at the time. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing?
I wasn't expecting the Cayenne part.
I know,
too,
right?
Because I know a lot of guys, a lot of guys and gals actually, when they went from an S2000, they went into something like a Porsche.
Yeah, like a Cayman or something. But she went to the Cayenne, and it was a Cayenne S. It was a beautiful car, but, you know, I was heartbroken. Yeah. And so I always wanted that. And so when time came, when I had the means to buy a third car, I think it was a third car at the time, I said, I want an S2000. I want something I could take to the track. And I did some research. I learned about the S2K Challenge. And I said, all right, I'm going to modify this car for the S2K Challenge to compete. And I want to become a better driver. And all the research I did, if you want to go fast on a track, you get a Corvette.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to drive fast on a track, you get an S2000.
Yeah.
That's like what my research yielded. And I wanted to learn how to be. I wanted to be better. I didn't want to just be fast. Because if you want to put down a fast lap time, go out and buy a new Z06, throw Hoosiers on it, brake pads, and you'll be the fastest guy of the day.
Yeah.
But if you want to become the best driver, you get an S2000 and you learn how to drive that car quickly.
Right.
So I bought that car and then started competing in the S2K Challenge. So I guess my moment was driving my mom's car when she didn't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes when she didn't know, you know, I'd beg her to go drive it sometimes after I got my license. And she'd always appease me and say, yeah, Kevin, go ahead, take my car.
Yeah.
And it was a...
just watch that snap oversteer.
Yeah, no, she didn't. She didn't say that. And I never had an issue with the snap oversteer, but I never really pushed it.
Yeah.
You know, the extent of my, you know, mischievous behavior was, you know, drifting from like a stop. You know, I'd turn left and like pop the clutch and just drift around. That was kind of like my bad behavior in the car.
That's not that bad.
Nah, it wasn't that bad. My parents might differ, but it wasn't that bad.
Whatever. It's what's in the past. There's no point in dwelling in the past.
Yeah.
It's funny because you said you had a Golf R, right?
I did.
I mean, comparably priced.
At the time, so this was, remember, I bought my Golf R in 2012.
Okay.
So they are comparably priced, but I was a Volkswagen fanboy at that time.
Interesting.
And the Golf R wasn't going to come to the US. You know, it came out in like 2009.
Yeah. This
is the Mark 6, the Haldex all-wheel drive, the big turbo 4. And then all of a sudden, it's coming to the US, and I had to have it. So I tried my best to make it work. I was working part-time at my father's shop and going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And my senior year, I think it was, of college, I bought one.
Okay.
And made that work. And that was the car that got me out of Volkswagens and into performance cars.
Okay.
I would say.
Expand on that.
So my first track day ever was in that car.
Okay.
Was in a Mark 6 Golf R that was modified APR Stage 2 Plus, had Michelin Pilot Super Sports, 8.5 wide wheels. I think I had 235s square on it, so not a whole lot of rubber. But the thing made like 360 crank horsepower. Like it was a fast car.
That's a lot.
And I took it to Willow Springs, Big Willow, for the first time, which is not what I recommend to any of my students for a first track day, because that track is not forgiving.
It's a very fast and scary track.
It's a very fast track, and if you make a mistake, there's not a lot of coming back from it.
Yeah, and the pavement there is...
It's awful. Have you ever walked it?
No.
It's one of the few tracks that after you walk it, you'll go slower. Because you'll look down and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
How is this not repaved? Because it is just wrecked.
Yeah.
And turn 9, there's a hole about 4 feet deep that's just filled with like bottoms of cones.
No way.
I'm not kidding. Like you look at it closely, I have a photo of it. It's sketchy. There's a lot of sketchy parts of that track, but that's part of the charm.
It is, sure. Okay.
So back to the Golf R. I went there, thinking I was fast and God's gift and all that stuff. And I got humbled very quickly. And that track day is what made me go, all right, I like this. And this is something I could do. And then next year, I thought track days were like a once a year thing, which I think most people do think they are.
Yeah.
They're like a special occasion, once a year, save up the whole year for it, modify the car for it. Kind of, that's how I looked at it.
It's also a pain in the ass for a lot of people because you got to wake up super early. You got to drive there.
Don't give me that wake up early stuff. If you want
Not
to,
for
you
me.
can go.
Not for me. I'm talking about for other people.
Right.
One day.
I know, but even
track day
I'm talking about other people too. Like they got to get out of that. Like, yeah, it does. You do have
it's
to
a
get up
novelty.
early.
It's like I go once a year. That's my thing.
That's what a lot of people do, and they're like, "Oh, I track my car."
Right.
And respect for getting out and doing it. But it couldn't be further from the truth that is the way to track a car. You need to be able to get out there often and feel the car out and like figure it out, or else you're not going to get any better. And people over modify their cars too for a track day.
Right.
Like I was guilty of that when I had my Golf R. I'm like, all right, I need a high pressure fuel pump. I need to run 100 octane. I need new tires. I need all this stuff. And the funny thing was I had 100 octane. I had all this stuff. I didn't once get in alignment, and I didn't once do brake pads or brake fluid, which are the most important thing to do.
Did you boil your brake?
And I never did. No, actually, the Golf R handled like a champ, or I was so slow it didn't matter.
Okay.
I don't know. I was doing like a 143s, I think, in my Golf R.
Okay.
Which wasn't dog slow, but it was not the fastest of the day by any means, especially for almost 330 wheel horsepower car.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not very fast. So anyways, the Golf R kind of brought me into performance driving and getting to the track. And that's what made me go and, splurge on the S2000.
Gotcha. It's a good story. Still makes me regret selling my car.
Everybody that talks to me, and when I go to Cars and Coffee in my car, which isn't terribly often because it's a race car and I don't like driving it on the street, is, I used to have one of those. Man, I regret selling it. And then they always like look up for a moment and just like sad face.
Yeah.
And then they snap out of it and they're like, well, now I drive a Maserati. And I'm like, oh, cool, man. Cool story. But, everybody misses that car.
But you know what? I've been very fortunate to drive quite a lot of different cars myself, not in a capacity of a track, but still, you have that sentimental kind of feeling about the car because it was just so much fun.
Right.
And I think the reason that people really, really come back to that car is that car was very, very potent and it was very attainable. And
the attainable.
Very, very close to getting the feeling of an exotic for not that much money.
Exactly.
And there were a lot of people.
To this day, I think they're a
bargain. To this day, for sure.
Personally,
absolutely.
I think $20,000 for one of these cars is a bargain.
Yeah. If you drive an S2000 versus an NSX back to back, I mean, there is a difference. There's a clear difference. But it's not. I mean, for some people, it's not enough to go up to an NSX.
Well, the S2Ks are faster. If you look at data, they're faster on track.
Yeah.
The NSX is. I haven't driven one in anger, but I know multiple people that have, and every time they're faster in the S2K. They're not that much more horsepower, 1. 2, the mid-engine, they have snap oversteer that isn't corrected with an alignment. They have snap oversteer issues that just plague that chassis. There's not much you can do about it. And I don't know whether it was, I think an F1 driver actually helped develop the handling of that car. Yeah. And I think that maybe he was so used to being on the ragged edge. He's like, this is awesome, but it's so razor sharp that even a good driver has a hard time going fast in the car.
Yeah.
which is appealing, but on a normal track day, you never see an NSX. Rarely see an NSX beat an S2K. So it's weird, but also there are more S2Ks, so take that with a grain of salt too. Maybe there are just more people, again, attainable, that can afford them and go out and beat on them for that.
I knew of the S2K challenge because I was on S2KI and some of the guys that were on that were going to these events. But for those who don't know, because there's the Miata Cup, for example.
Right.
It's kind of sort of like it, right?
It is, but it isn't. It's much cheaper because as a director, we help make the rules cater to low consumables. So in a lot of the Miata, I don't know much about the Miata Cup, but Super Miata, for instance.
Yeah.
And Spec Miata. Let's take Spec Miata, for instance.
Okay.
They limit you to 140 wheel horsepower. To get that motor to 140 wheel, it's an expensive-ass motor, and it doesn't last very long. And then they limit you to, you can do a 5-speed or a 6-speed, but everyone knows the 6 speeds are slightly faster.
Sure.
Like a quarter second faster.
Okay.
But they have to be rebuilt every 6 to 8 track days because they're just not as good as the 5 speeds. But they don't look at that as a problem. They go, hey, if you want to spend the money, go ahead. So if you want to spend the money, if you want to win Spec Miata, you need to have a 6-speed. You need to have that $20,000 motor that makes 140 horsepower.
$20,000 for that motor?
So I haven't been into it, but they're very expensive.
That's that little what is it, 1.6, 1.8?
1.6.
That's nuts. That's a lot.
For that build, it's 10 to 20K because you get a crate motor built. It's a race motor.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with those series is they've gotten to such a level of competition that you can really pay to win with a good driver, of course, but you need to have all that stuff. And I forget, I know Speed Venture's going to kill me, but they have, I think it's Super Miata that Speed Ventures runs.
I wouldn't know, but okay.
I think it's Super Miata.
We could take a look at that, sure.
And they actually saw the problem with Spec Miata and solved it by, not having the race motors required basically to be competitive, and they're still wheel-to-wheel and all that good stuff.
Got it, okay.
So that's a wheel-to-wheel series, same with Spec Miata. S2K Challenge isn't wheel-to-wheel, it's time attack.
Yeah.
So what you do is you basically just sign up for a Speed Ventures track day.
Okay.
And then basically the first session's qualifying. Whatever group you're in, they grid you by lap time. So the first session doesn't count as a time. You just get your qualifying, and then session 2, you're gridded up by lap time.
Okay.
And then you go out and do your best in session 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are the sessions that count. Typically, you're going to be faster in session 2 in a perfect world, but we still open session 3 because mistakes get made. You get blocked, whatever, life happens.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, we give award summary for the fastest time. So it's really a low stress environment to become a sponsored driver because we are sponsored by Maxxis, Stop Tech, Hot Lap, Rockstar Garage. We have a pretty good size amount of sponsors for just a time attack series.
Yeah.
And the point system breaks down with stock, street, modified, and super modified. Stock is basically a stock car.
Yeah.
I think you have a half point, and that is like a set of tires, maybe.
Okay.
You can run the stock size, but maybe in RS3s or something like that. Not a really strong tire, but a good tire, but stock suspension, stock aero. We don't limit safety or big brakes because we feel that is something that shouldn't be limited.
Big
especially
brakes.
Safety.
Yeah, the big brakes though. That's interesting. Because brakes can make a big difference.
In the S2K, they don't.
Really?
The stock brakes are really good. The issue is that they crack.
Yeah, and the thing is with Honda, I think this problem plagues all Hondas. Like I have an SI, and it's the same issue. They warp really, really easily.
I have a conflicting argument against that. I actually spoke at length with Brad Abrams at Stop Tech, and he said modern. Now I don't know if an S2K rotors count as modern rotors. He said
just a Honda Accord rotors.
He said, or whatever they are. Yeah, he said modern rotors don't warp. What you get is uneven pad distribution.
Maybe that's what it is.
So the pads heat up, and then they just kind of lay the pad material on the pad or on the rotor in an uneven way to where it feels like it's warped.
Okay.
So a lot of the times that's the issue you're feeling. But that aside, I didn't mean to correct you.
No.
That was an interesting thing that I learned from our Stop Tech sponsor about rotors is that that's not common. Like it can happen.
Got it.
But it's not a common thing.
Okay, so from the stock class, we're going to the...
So stock, you go to street, and we have 3.5 points based on our point system that can be found on our website or on Facebook. And that gives you basically coilovers, square setup, no aero unless you want to run staggered and stock suspension.
What if you're running a CR?
A CR is perfectly in street class, almost maxed out.
Okay.
So a CR, because of the hardtop, because of the aero, because of the suspension, we actually have more points for the CR suspension because it is that good.
It's very good.
It's not just, a slight revision of the dampening. Like they have new spring rates. They have different sway bars. Like the CR is an amazing car.
Yeah. I drove one back to back. I went to a dealership and I was like, I want to drive
different.
It. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's spectacular.
It really did well.
So much more rigid than I thought it would be.
And they actually have no soft top, obviously. And then they also have a rear brace, which I thought was the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I actually developed a rear brace with TB Performance products for the S2K. I don't know if you saw that on my Instagram.
I did.
But it doesn't copy the CR brace, but we know that there's something to be gained there because Honda thought, hey, we need to do a brace for the CR. So we did a more rigid brace that comes up to the top of the trunk and kind of comes down. It's a really good setup, and I feel that it makes a difference. But anyways, back to the street class. A CR with like lowering springs and like RS3s or RS4s now is like pretty much top tier street class.
Okay.
But if you have a stock S2K, you can get a hard top, you can get coilovers, you can get square setup, and you can get street tires. Not RE71Rs. I'll get to those in a second.
Okay.
But most street tires, and then that's a street class car. Most cars that you see on the street is kind of the idea.
Hard to classify that tire as a street tire, man.
Exactly. I'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
So then you have mod class, and mod class is where most of the, I don't want to say fast guys because there's a lot of fast guys in street too, but that's like the hotly contested area. That's where I compete in. That's where Ryan, another S2K challenge director who's very talented, runs as well. And that is basically a street car, but you add aero.
Okay.
So you have coilovers, square setup, and then you have whatever wing you want, whatever splitter you want, canards, the whole bit.
Okay.
And then as far as tires, we try and keep it to cater to the sponsor Maxxis. Mm-hmm. So we try and run RC1s.
Okay.
But if you're dead set on running RE71Rs, we actually have them at a penalty of a 0.5 point over NTO1s, RC1s, because they are that fast.
Yeah.
And we kind of point them a little bit over because they're very expensive.
They're very expensive.
And not just to buy, but they only last 3 or 4 track days on an S2000.
Yeah.
And when you compare that to an NTO1, even if you get them for the same price, the NTO1 will last 7 to 9 track days.
That's pretty good.
So you're talking double the price over an NTO1 for the RE71Rs. And you will be a second faster around Buttonwillow. You will be.
Branding.
But at what cost? And so we actually made that more points to try and get the series to be cheaper to run. Because the second you make that tire the same as the RC1, everyone has to be on it to be fast. And we don't want that. We didn't want an arms race. We don't want to pay to win. We want a truly talent-driven like spec series. It's kind of what it turns into, even though it's not a spec series. Yeah. But there's a certain formula that everyone does, and that's the hard top, the race seat, the coilovers, the 255 4017 square set up on Maxxis RC1s. Yeah. And either an APR 250 rear wing or a homemade splitter in the front, doesn't matter. And that's kind of like the recipe that everyone does.
It's funny that you say that because it doesn't sound like a lot of parts to get to that level, especially to that level of time for that track or whichever track you're going to.
It isn't. And until recently, my car wasn't that extravagantly built. I was on one-way feel coilovers for a long time. When I first broke sub 2 at Buttonwillow, I was on one-way coilovers. Yeah. They're like off the shelf. I think they're $1,400 from Rockstar Garage. They're not expensive and they're good. Recently, I got into 443s, which is a 3-way Penske hybrid, $5,600 MSRP coilover.
Wow, okay.
So until recently, which I'm still co-developing those, they need a little bit of tweaking, but they're good. Mm-hmm. My car was probably, you could build it for 22 grand, 21 grand maybe, including the cost of the car.
That's pretty damn good.
It is. And, I have a lot of stuff that I don't need, like my Voltex rear wing, because JDM,
right?
You don't need to spend.
It's a very expensive item.
You do not need to spend $3 grand on a rear wing for that car. you can be just as fast on an APR wing for $1,100.
Yeah.
So you can build a competitive car for cheap. And I think this next year, we've actually gotten almost double our attendance from the year before.
Wow.
And then this upcoming year, we have a lot of people building cars just for the series. So it's on the rise.
Yeah.
I know it was very popular when the S2K first came out, and then kind of took a dip, maybe when they got expensive. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then recently, we've just kind of skyrocketed, and we've gotten a lot of interest.
Let's get in the Supermod. I'm interested about the Supermod because I'm thinking like ASM S2000 here. Or like,
so that would be Supermod. So Supermod is basically unlimited points. We used to have an unlimited class, but no one ever got to that. So we just kind of got rid of that. Said Supermod is, you know, all the money, all the horsepower you want to throw at it, you can do. So that's supercharged S2Ks with aero.
Okay.
Whatever tires you want to run. Those are the guys that are serious. The guy, Dustin DeSero, what Chris Elders is running that this year. All the supercharged guys, Dave Lara, who are very, very fast and very talented, are running that.
Let's talk about Fast Toys. Because now we're going into the exotic stuff, and this is where it gets really fun.
Yes.
For you, at least, because you get to try stuff that, you know, most normal people won't get behind the wheel of, like McLarens, like Ferraris, like Porsches. What's the best car on the track out of those?
Okay, so, man, the best car on track out of the exotics.
Yeah.
As a whole, I really like every McLaren I've ever driven. McLaren, I think, is the best.
Yeah.
And a lot of purists will hate me, but I think a lot of the 2003 to like 2013 Lamborghinis are garbage.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw that out there. They have the old, you know, S-tronic Audi automatic that sucks. Any all-wheel drive Lamborghini I haven't really enjoyed. Put it that way. The all-wheel drive, it handles like a pig. They're really fast in a straight line. They look gorgeous. I won't argue that.
Yeah.
But they're just not engaging, especially not like a McLaren. Like a McLaren, completely stock, I can take out on Auto Club and have a blast.
Yeah.
And those things are crazy fast.
So you've driven the 675, and what's the new one?
720?
720.
I have not driven a 720. Next event, I think I will, because I was chasing an owner in a 720.
Got it.
And I was catching him in the S2K in every braking zone.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
well, it's
given
also,
it's a race, I'm in a race car, blah, blah,
right.
You know, reasons.
Yeah.
But he came up to me after and went, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And so I think he's going to come to me for instruction at the next event. So
it's a very good, nice, that's a nice sales pitch you got there. I'm going to pass you.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay me money
in a car
on
with 220 horsepower, and then we'll talk. Like, you don't need to take me at my word. I'll see you out on the track. And that's kind of how I get a lot of my clients doing that way.
I am pretty bummed out that we have to actually slow it down to the point where we actually shut it down.
Okay.
Because we're running out of time.
Okay.
But I think what we need to do is tomorrow get back here, and what we'll do is we'll start a brand new podcast on car setup.
Okay.
And car control.
we can work it out. Yeah. We can schedule something.
We'll get up there in the charts. Right away.
Definitely.
Just throw it up on S2K and we got 1,000 listeners.
See, hey, there it is.
Yeah, but Kevin, thank you so much for coming out.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
It's my pleasure. So I want you to do something for me and for everybody else, and also for yourself, obviously. I want you to go ahead and tell people where they can find the S2K Challenge.
Okay.
Where they can find you on all those exotic, if you drive an exotic, on how they could get you to instruct them, and anything else you want to plug. So go right ahead.
Okay, my Instagram is _Schmevin_, which is kind of a weird Instagram. I get it, but it's just something I've always had.
Kevin, I get it.
We get it. Yeah. It's, you know, I didn't expect it to get this big with that name, but here we are.
Yeah.
S2K Challenge. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram. We have both. Okay. You'll probably be talking to me or one of the other two directors who are also very talented S2000 drivers.
Great.
And you can talk to us about setup, you know, coming to the events, anything that's hosted by Speed Ventures, which I highly recommend for a safe, cheap track experience. And as far as the exotic owners, and I don't want to just say exotics, like anyone can go to these events, but they're just a little more pricey.
Yeah.
You go to fasttoys.com, fasttoysclub.com.
All right.
And they have an Instagram as well. And you can DM them there or DM me, and I can set you up with, you know, whatever. I can get you a discount. We can work something out if you go through me. At any rate, Fast Toys Club is the name of it, and they do exotic track days. They have a track day membership that you could buy, where you basically prepay for, I think, 5 to 7 track days, and it ends up being a lot cheaper that way. And I highly recommend that if you're serious about doing it. You get free instruction, you get lunch. It's a very high caliber event. And then they also do exotic car rentals, which you can look on their site if you want more information about that.
The Road Stories podcast is recorded, mixed, and produced by Michael Senderovich. Original music is provided by Clarence in the Road Stories project. You can find more music by Clarence by going to soundcloud.com/Clarence Los Angeles. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review. It helps the show greatly. And lastly, please follow the show on social media at RS Podcast. Thanks so much for listening.